All right, back at it. Athlete Builder Jim Beebe here. I'm the host running the show. And as always, we're brought to you by the AEA Institute and the Mental Edge Academy. Hit me up for our summer boot camps. And coming soon, we will be on School, SKOOL. So look for that community. We'll be putting everything that we know and all our systems in place there as well. Today, we're going in a completely different direction. Been doing this almost 3 years, 2.5. Haven't had a professional golfer on yet, but today we have that guy. We got Greg Towne out of Indiana State. He's the head coach for women's golf. Been working with him for a few months. Played a lot of different things growing up, track, baseball, shoot, you name it, but we'll end up going the golf route, and we're going to get into that as well as some fun questions, talk about mindset as always. That's what we do at Athlete Builder, and kind of just get into it. So first, Greg, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Jim. Good to be here.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun today. I'm right off the bat. If you could win one major, which one would it be?
Me, it'd have to be the Masters, I guess.
Over the U.S. Open.
Yeah, even though the U.S. Open's probably the hardest test, I think the Masters, everybody watches it, and it's got all the tradition, and they might have a hard time finding a coat to fit me.
No, that's not. Man, the Tristan's huge at all of them, but like not even the British Open where everything started, like going over St. Andrews, so still the Masters, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Tiger or Jack?
Jack was always my hero, so he's still the greatest as far as I'm concerned.
I was just at Ohio State last week for their football conference, as you can see.
Really?
Got my Buckeye hat on, and as you know, Jack the Golden Bears from Columbus and went to Ohio State.
Sure. Yeah, it's hard to see him now at the Masters because he's always younger in my eyes, but I see him
Sure.
up struggling to get up there sometimes, but he's still my hero.
Gotcha. Top 3 places you've ever played?
That's a good one. Well, South Africa at Fan Court, I played there where the President's Cup was at. That's still one of my favorite golf courses. And then you have to throw St. Andrews in there, but there's tons of link style courses everywhere in the world that's pretty interesting. I did play a place in Jersey, which is a little island just off the coast of England, but in France. And it was pretty strange. There were German tanks buried in the fairways from World War II. There were these humps in the middle of the fairways. And I asked what those humps were because they kind of were a little strange to the architecture. And they're like, well, there were German tanks here and we just buried them and built a golf course. And I just thought that was the craziest thing ever. So,
My goodness.
but I've been to a lot of really cool places.
Man. How about Waste Management, that par 3?
Yeah,
Is it
well, so
16?
I've played the course a few times and it's so random because that par 3 is like a very mundane par 3. There's nothing to it at all. And when you play it, it's not even one of the better holes on the course. And then when you throw those stands around and you throw that kind of thing out there, it's tough on the guys because it's a fairly simple shot.
Right.
Same as Sawgrass. So when you play there, you never hardly miss a green. It's not big, but it's not that difficult to hit either. But when they walk through the tunnel and do all this stuff to try to intimidate you, it changes everything.
You're talking about that island green?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get into that later, but athletic endeavors, there's the easy little layup.
Yeah, sure.
But then there's a layup when the entire crowd is watching and it's game 7. And then it might be a layup on that island green, but now everyone's watching, it's on TV, and it's for a bunch of money, and your life is, and your ego and your identity is at stake. That changes the whole equation. Then you just said that waste management hole is easy and in fact boring.
Hmm.
But you got a bunch of those drunk fraternity guys, or those guys that are in their bachelor weekends, and I watch just for the antics on that. I'm praying that they miss that green so they get hammered,
Yeah, yeah.
My goodness, absolutely fun.
You can just see the guy's blood pressure go up too. It's funny when they start booing him because you don't get booed that often in your life, really.
Right,
And the opportunity for a golfer to get booed is, whew, that's out there.
right. The golfers usually, they all say the right party line in that when they're interviewed. Hey man, it's a great time, well, it's part of the game, it's a lot of fun that way. But they're sweating it,
Secretly, they hate it.
right? There's this thing I watched a while back, and back when Tiger was Tiger, and he would tee off, and both guys would hit these bombing drives, but this is when Tiger's really killing it. And that one thing that Tiger would do is that he would just walk right past the first ball, going to the second one, not even looking down at it because he implied that there's no way you outdrove me ever, right?
Yeah,
And so there's different little tactics that every athlete can do in any sport to kind of mess with the other guy's head.
sure.
What are some fun or unknown or subtle things that golfers do to get in the other players' heads every once in a while at different levels?
Well, you're not really supposed to do that, but since this is an honest podcast, I guess I'll throw a few at you. But, you
Sure.
know, the Tiger looking at or not looking at the ball, that's a thing. You call it a courtesy look every now and then when you look at one that you hit past. And that's just being nice. But like when you hit it past somebody, you kind of stand out in front of them before they hit. Not in front of them, but you walk a few more paces past them, just to that's kind of the thing. And I just think once you get it going, you kind of take, I hate to say this, but actually ask my girls to do it a lot is like, take control of the group. Don't defer. Get up and hit first. If somebody else isn't ready, say, I'll go, that kind of thing. And be the first to the tee and fire. In a lot of cases in college golf, they don't play honor system anyway, but that kind of thing. And I think, you make a few birdies and you just get it going. You kind of, you put out a aura around you about what's going on and you just take advantage of that.
Love it. Is it Tin Cup? Is it Caddyshack? Is it Bagger Vance? Like, what's the top of the food chain golf movie for you?
Man, none of those actually. I mean, Dead Solid Perfect with Randy Quaid was about as close as he get. It
All
was,
right.
yeah, it was pretty good. And then the rest of the golf movies, I mean, Caddyshack was funny as heck, but I really didn't care for many of the others. Maybe some of it was just the acting, and pure golfers kind of hate it when an actor tries to pretend to swing a golf club decent. And it looks really weird. But the storyline, I read the books on a couple of those other ones, and so that was all right. And I think Golf in the Kingdom, maybe they were going to try to do something with that. I don't know if they did or not, but it's difficult to make a golf movie.
No, I get that, but the same golfers are going to be saying, "Well, I sure did like Hoosiers, a basketball movie, or I
Right.
liked, Major
Right.
League, a baseball movie," and it's the same deal that sometimes those movies are made to be theatrical and dramatic, or sometimes they're made to be comedies.
So I guess along those lines, if it was a baseball movie, I would say Bull Durham.
Right.
So So there you go. It's more about the struggle and the thing like that, the behind the scenes stuff. And so like Bull Durham would show more of that. Golf hasn't really come up with a movie yet. They kind of do all the girl stuff or the comedy and nothing really kind of profound about it. So maybe
Yeah.
that's it.
So Happy Gilmore probably wasn't top of the chain
Yeah,
there
I
yet.
watched and the second one was really crazy, but of course I got to see the old guys and they all liked it. And my wife still has a crush on Freddie Couples, I think, so she's sort of like that.
No kid. Would you rather dominate off the tee, your approach, short game, or putting?
Approach shots, it's always best. Yeah. When you're knocking it in there close, it drives them crazy. You can miss putts and it doesn't matter because you're going to have so many chances. You'll get one in sooner or later. So, yeah, I'd way rather hit it close. And if somebody's driving it past you, you pepper it inside them with a 5 iron instead of an 8 iron, then that just drives them crazy. So, that's the greatest thing ever.
That's awesome. Awesome. Now you're coaching women, you're coaching at the college level, Indiana State. We've been working with them with our mental edge academy. Have you coached on the men's side as well before?
Yeah, so I coached a lot of mostly professionals and young players that were trying to be professionals. So, I had that side of things before I actually coached women. So it's very interesting. I love coaching women. Maybe I like coaching them more than men, but, I started mostly with men.
Each group's gonna have pluses and minuses.
But yeah, it's totally different. You have way more on the emotional side with the girls, and that's something that you work with. And with your line of business, the challenges with young people and especially with young women. It's an issue to do some emotional regulation rather than trying to control it. They try to control their emotions, say this isn't what I need to be feeling, and I'm like, you're feeling it, you can't stop it. You're going to have to learn how to regulate it when you're feeling it, and so that's something we try to work through, and that I feel like a lot of the young players struggle with.
I was just working with this one coach, and he had a number of short little messages or quotes or sayings written on his whiteboard, and one simply said, "Be fearless." I'm like, you're telling people don't feel fear. And once you say that, they hear the word fear, and the first thing they're going to think about is some kind of fear. So if I say, don't think about your left foot, you're going to be thinking about your left foot right then and there. I just like what you say, I coach athletes, feel however it comes out, but then have a process in place immediately. Always answer the question, "Now what?" So, "Hey, I feel this certain way. What does that really mean?" It just tells me that what's gonna happen next is important. Great, so this is important. What's my next what's my next step? And it's still gonna be assess the situation, regulate your breathing, think about mechanics, dial in your focus. It's not focus on the water or the crowd with the beer on hole 16. It's still go through all your mechanics. Now, in a call it a 4-hour match, things are moving along at a decent clip. You're swinging a club for less than 10 minutes, probably less than 5, right? So the rest of it is walking around and you're in between your ears. And one of the things the items you put down here on my research was sport specific stresses that golf imposes more than other sports. Talk about those for a little bit.
Yeah, well, you mentioned it at the time between shots. It should, I don't know. I always use the time between shots to try to, based on how I was feeling that day, to try to, or that week or whenever, to try to use that to do some emotional regulation. And I think now with all of the distractions and stuff that some of the kids have, they got their head down, they're not looking around. We talked about that this week, and we talk about it sometimes specific places where you have smells or sights or birds chirping or whatever the heck it is, something that you can, um, look around with your eyeballs and have some gratitude and appreciation for, whether it's nature or whatever. That's a positive thing you can do in golf. I see a lot of psychologists say, you're feeling depressed, go for a walk in the woods, right? Get around nature and stuff. And I'm like, for Christ's sake, ladies, here you are. You have 10 minutes every hole to walk in nature. I don't see a lot of people appreciating that in golf. And I'm constantly saying, "Look at that woodpecker. That's the biggest one I've seen in a long time," or something like that. And I feel like that's extremely helpful. But golf does give you time to get in your head, and it can be in a good way or a bad way. It's your choice, really. Tactics, and you guys have given us tactics that help you to kind of based on neuroscience, and it's just a thing if you want to use those skills or not.
Yep. Yep. My wife would say that when she's in nature, that's when she feels closest to Christ. So that's always typically a good thing. And we would s- we would specifically go out when it's beautiful, but we also specifically go out when it's not and say, "Hey, this is still part of it." And it's find some joy walking in the rain or in a cold snowstorm in January. You can still find beauty that way. So when you're constantly fixating on things that are challenging, you can't get out of that spiral, right? So one time I'm watching this movie, and it was probably one of the alien movies. It's one of the few like horror movies I like. And I'm watching. I think it was with my daughter and Sam, my son. I can't remember which, but they're like, "Oh my god, I can't watch this anymore. I can't watch this anymore." I said, "Just look at the wall for 5 seconds, and then look back at the movie. Your focus is over here at the wall. Then, even though you can hear it, you're not as in it."
Yeah,
And so if you're looking at where your ball landed, but you look somewhere else, you can take yourself out of the situation. And motion does help change your thinking because you're moving, right? So you're doing something physical. You take yourself out of the situation, hit that reset button, just like we do with anything technology related or the car, right? Hit a reset button, go back through your process, and go swing the club again, right?
right. We try to use the reset button as a mantra, but it's just something. I know when I walk up to a player that's emotionally upset about something, it doesn't do any good to go and say, "Hey, okay, it's all right. Let's do this." But you can go up and say, "All right, time to reset." And it's a simple thing, and it's not judgmental. It's not instructional, really. It's just like, "Okay, let's reset. Got this."
Sometimes I would even just change the wording
Hmm.
and ask, is now a good time for a reset? So if they say yes, now's a good time, then they're kind of owning the choice
That's a good one.
as opposed to me telling them, "All right, reset right now." Well, I don't feel like doing that. And I'm tired of you telling me that we're reset. In fact, stick reset up your ass, right? So you can add, hey, is now a good time? And then in addition, just that tactical empathy. Man, I've been in the sand before. I used to walk up to the sand with so much trepidation, but I know that I've done so much work in the sand that this is really a separator. So everyone's going to be in the sand at some point. I'm looking forward to it because I did so much work. So framing it like that after you have some tactical empathy helps. I'm not sure. Like, are you allowed to be on the course when their girls are competing? Are you walking around, or how's that work?
So you can actually essentially caddy for them. I can walk now in high school, you can't, but in college, you can walk along with them and talk about whatever you want to talk about, or you can help them with their shots or read their putts. You can do a lot of stuff. So I kind of use that when I'm with them, not so much for emotional regulation unless they need it, but for just instruction and getting them to learn about the game. I'll point out some things before and after the shots, and sometimes it's distracting for them, but it's okay if it's something that's going to help them downstream. There's a lot to golf that most of the younger players just haven't yet experienced.
That's really the deal. To get to the top of the mountain, you've had so many losses and experiences that you know what to do when you see that same situation again. So that second time around, you get a win. So you want to accumulate those learning experiences as quickly as possible, not avoid them, right? Because they're going to happen anyways. So embrace those pieces, take notes, have a way of reassessing what happened, and make sure you have your feedback loop so you can constantly adjust because you're thinking about what's next. Now what? Because if you're just looking in the rearview mirror, that's a lot of pain. But applying what you just learned going forward helps out a lot.
Absolutely. I asked them after every round, what went well and where's the room for improvement? And they have to journal that stuff. They have to write it down. Otherwise, next year we'll be playing at the same course, or maybe the next regional is in the same place. And you have an opportunity there to say, oh yeah, I forgot. That's what I needed to focus more on, and that kind of thing. So, but with golf, you can there's something different's going to happen to you every round that you've not experienced when you're that age. So they have to be curious and they have to be diligent with planning their focus for the next practice.
There was a couple year stint in high school where I was a caddy at Beachmont Country Club in Chagrin Falls, Cleveland, Ohio. Uh, they're doing this members tournament, and the one caddy had been doing it for years. This I'm paired up with him because I'm new, and so these people would be lining up this putt, and he goes, "I've been seeing this putt for years. It doesn't break that much. It looks like it does. It just doesn't." I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Well, I've seen it so many times. I don't need to know. I know the course didn't change, but so those people, they're not better golfers. It's just that they had a little bit of knowledge. So if you come back to a course you already played, and you're like, I know what I thought last time. It's just not the case, right? Or it just is. So then you can apply it, and that's just accumulating another rep and applying it.
You're right. But as a coach, you have to create that the kind of trust with the player before they'll actually believe you 100%. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it usually takes their entire freshman year before they believe I don't really misread putts very often.
I had my own kids tell me, I don't know what I'm talking about, or they don't want any coaching from me. So,
Yeah,
that happens. Would you rather win a national title as a player or as a coach?
that's a good one. You would affect more people if you won it as a coach. You'd probably affect more lives. So I'd probably actually go with that. That sounds crazy.
I
But
think either way, they springboard you.
and that's what my first thought was a national title as a player would springboard you. But there's plenty of people that are like that don't influence lives. And so that's a thing. You'd have to be a coach to probably influence lives.
Gotcha, gotcha. You wrote down, I'm not against goal setting, but some people let them limit possibilities.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Well, so you have so many people instructing you on how to set goals. I always step on toes with this because shoot, my reviews for employment are always about your goals, and everybody's going to say win the conference championship, blah blah blah. And I've always found that if you embrace some of your spiritual gifts that come along and those kind of things, if you're open to that, they surprise you. And goals, you kind of get this thing set, boom, 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 boom. And the things that surprise you can help you to get even to a higher spot. And that's kind of random thought about that. But, my goals when I was a little or younger was like set the world record in the half mile, right? When I was a running track. And then it was to play Major League Baseball. And then none of it was to ever play golf. None of it was to ever influence anybody. None of it was ever, heck, I had lunch with the president in the White House and I never set that goal. So that kind of stuff you accomplish by just busting your butt, working hard and chasing your dreams and embracing spiritual gifts as they come along. And I think having just a great attitude and being curious all the time. There's a book called Curious Mind that the guy that was the producer for Apollo 13 and for Splash, that movie with the mermaid.
Mm-hmm.
He went to school to be a lawyer or something, and he ends up being this unbelievable producer. And he just had his whole book, the premise of it is these 100 people he wanted to interview, and it's from the Dalai Lama to the presidents to everybody. And he ends up interviewing them and just having this curious mind and embracing everything he learned from all these people in all these situations. I guess his goal was to interview all these people, but at the end, his process is what made him who he was. And I just think there's so many opportunities to do things that way. Obviously, you have to have some kind of process and you have to set some parameters for what you're doing, but you just never know where you're going to land. And it's never your 5-year plan is never your 5-year plan, as you know.
So I heard Be Curious, which screams Ted Lasso if you watch any of his
Oh,
episodes.
yeah, Ted Lasso, of course, that's my alma mater, Wichita State. So that's hilarious. I didn't watch it until like COVID, and then I binged it, and it was brilliant.
I first watched it this year, 2026.
Is that right? Yeah.
My brother made me watch an episode when I was over his place, and I watched another one with him, and I'm like, oh, god damn it. Now I have to get Apple TV and watch this damn thing. So I showed my wife, and she got hooked. So it ran through the house. So Be Curious, attitude, right? Open, right?
Hmm.
Open and curious, but still a somewhat positive attitude, just being comfortable and knowing that God's leading you along the way. And then work ethic. So yeah, you can be curious, but that guy that wrote that did that book, he still had to do the work of the 100 interviews. He didn't just sit there and stare at the wall and think, hey, I'm gonna like to know what that is, and then not do anything. So you got to still work hard in whatever your tasks are that day. Be curious and open to wherever your path might actually lead you, and then you might get there. I also agreed that the part where, hey, I want to run this half mile, or I want to be a Major League Baseball player, or I want to shoot this score. Those are all external, tangible moments, and that's not really the deal. Like when people are really getting good at things, they might have some targets like that, but it's all going to come down to their process. Hey, I want to make sure I'm prepping my food. I want to make sure I'm maximizing my recovery. I want to make
Hmm.
sure I'm getting this many swings from the tee box, from the approach, short game and putts. I want to have this much time with my coach. I want to have this much relaxed time and downtime. I want to make sure I'm spending this much time on my mindset, right? And when you're doing all those things, the next important piece is with your coach. Can you identify the limiting factor in those inputs? So if you're great off the tee and that's all you practice is being on the tee, but you suck on the green, well, shoot, man, you sure worked hard, but you weren't systematic and specific about it. And when I tell folks, the thing you're probably avoiding the most is what's holding you back.
Hmm.
So if you can work on those habits, then a lot of these other targets end up getting realized along the way. But I do like that, being curious, good attitude and work ethic. I'm going to approach that and then look at that Curious Mind book.
Well, you can, and like I say, you can be curious about stuff and you can learn all about it. But if you're not willing to change whatever you need to change to be better, then you're just reading a book. So you have to have the fortitude to say and discipline to say, I'm willing to change this to get better. And so many people aren't. They'd rather hit their tee shots over and over.
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause it's comfortable.
It's comfortable. It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bombing away. How'd you get to the White House?
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny when I played at the U.S. Open, the guys that made the cut, it wasn't exclusive of me, but the guys that made the cut got invited to have lunch with President Clinton, and he showed up at the tournament, and nobody really knew he was going to be there. He had a box right off of 17, which is now 18. They changed the whole at Congressional. It was in DC basically, and he was right there. So, I after I hit my shot on 17, I walked over to the thing and shook his hand, and it was all great. And then everybody got invited. Well, it turned out, everybody's kind of conservative and didn't really care for President Clinton probably that much at the time, but it was there were only four of us went, and I don't know whether it was because of that or because people had things planned, but it was the next day after the tournament was over. And so my parents and my whole family, we went, and it was brilliant. We had a great time, and he spent a lot of time with us. I thought maybe he wouldn't, but it was kind of neat that we got that opportunity. We drove our car right up on the East Lawn, and they inspected us under with the mirrors and the dogs, and let my little kids run around, and they were setting off the alarms in the lawn, and Secret Service came and got them, and so it was a fun thing.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's nice.
So
And I didn't see that one wasn't on my bingo card, so it turned out great.
you coach other pro players, male and female, right? Yeah. You miss working with those at that level. But, what I wrote down here is that you seem to coach everyone as if they're going to go pro at some point in their
Yeah, I
in,
mean,
in golf.
give them the best skill. If their body is good and of course, their brain's not going to be as good as the pros yet, but you can teach them a swing that's world class. So I think that's important. And there's a lot of stuff out there you see here. People say, "Oh, just swing your swing. It's what you got given to you," and all that. And like, that's not true. I mean, if you see a idiosyncratic swing on the tour, everybody jumps all over. See, you can swing any way you want, and become a tour pro, and that's not true. So anyway, try to teach the best kind of biomechanical swing. And there are body limitations, or body women are different than men, so their swing needs to be there's issues that are unique to that. But everybody can learn to, with a body and skill, and mindset, can learn how to swing the club pretty well. And it takes a lot of time, a lot of reps, like you talk about. But the mental side of being a professional at anything is way higher than what. And your book, that's what I loved about that book so much, was when you grade everybody like they're taking the test, and it comes out that they're an NAIA player and they thought they were a pro. I just laughed, and because the difference between professional sports and even high level amateur is a large margin. Anyway, I kind of got off track of your question, but it's fascinating. So I do like teaching those kind of people, but at the end of the day, it takes a lot of time and a lot of sacrifice to be their coach as well. And the travel's just a little too much for that kind of thing, really.
Sure, sure. You talk about how there's a large margin at the top, and at that point, it's almost all mental, and how it's a big separator. Can you like crystallize 2 to 3 consistent trends you see in that space where athletes can make a difference?
You mean to become a pro?
No, improve their mental approach to the game.
I I think the challenges for most of the amateurs is dedication to the game, studying the game, specific to golf. I remember when Tiger first came out in '97 or '96, I believe he played the Masters as an amateur, and then he was one of the first to like just watch over and over the putts on the holes and how the balls were hit into the green from film. So nobody would watch film before, as if it was, I don't need to watch that to be good. And he watched that stuff over and over as a young man, as a young player, and, wins the Masters right away. And of course, everybody said, no, you got to play here a whole bunch. Like, I honestly don't know why I couldn't watch film of it and figure out how everything works and breaks. And it probably could do it faster than waiting every year to play. So finding that kind of edge, and I tell my team, like, nobody in college golf at least a mid-major level like charts wind and grain and all that kind of stuff. And it's stuff that we do, but that some of the girls don't appreciate because it's difficult to do the little small things. And when you try to find an edge wherever you can get it, it's low hanging fruit. So those kind of things are stuff that pros do. And then as far as the mental side of it, I've seen a lot of a lot of the great pros have great support at home. They have peace at home. They have that kind of thing, a quiet mind, and you have to spend your time trying to get a quiet mind. And that's, they talk about surrounding yourself with people, all that, but there's something about it. And if you have a busy mind or a distracted mind, you can't be a good professional.
So when I break down the athlete builder model, I've been saying it for years now. So there's the head and the body, and the three pieces of the head are the only three things you talked about. One is mindset, your approach. Hey, I'm going to be disciplined, right? I'm going to
Hmm.
I'm going to be curious. But then you talked about the knowledge. Like that's different from mindset. Knowledge is he sat there and watched film. And if success leaves clues, which it does, you can model other people, other people's habits, or you can model the actual data from the film study. And then you said you got to have the right people around you. So that's teammates. What comes out of your mouth? How do you work with people? So mindset, knowledge, and teammates are the only three things I talk about in the athlete's head. And you highlighted all three as the only three things. So having friction anywhere, I need more money because I'm not doing very well, or I have kids and there's work, or I have a spouse, right? All that there's only so much stress you can handle before you start breaking a little bit in certain areas. And if you can limit your stress outside of your sport or your job, you can then handle more with your sport and job. But if you're
Hmm.
stressed everywhere, well, now you're just going to be having a bad time, right? You're not going to be anywhere near as good as you could be, even though you're fighting and you're getting better. But man, it really does take a toll. And just at that last weekend, the honor at Ohio State coach at the high school, college, and pro level. And this high school guy, the last 10 years, he won 6 titles, was runner up 3 times. And then the 10th year, he wasn't as good. So, like 9 times out of 10, he was in the title game. And he highlighted one thing. He goes, you have to love what you're doing because there's so much work involved to do all the little things. And if I didn't have a teammate like my wife supporting that, game over, no chance. So all this happens because my wife and works together with me to make this happen so that we have a team structure towards this approach. And he goes, without it, there's no chance. And you just highlighted right there. You have something at home that's a repeatable process. Well, now you have a chance. You still might not get there, but now you got a shot.
Yeah, I've had, unfortunately, some of my hardest conversations, but something I sort of secretly enjoy was I'd have some mini tour guys that were trying to make the tour, and they show up and they had on this and that, and they'd also have a girlfriend that was tagging along with them, and I was like, "What's she doing?" And and they'd be like, "Oh, she's here to support me." I'm like, "Is she working?" No. Okay, how's she supporting you? Well, and I'm like, "Okay, man." Like, you're going to be here 8 hours today and you're going to be here 8 hours tomorrow, and she's just going to sit in that golf cart. It's kind of like nowadays you have a phone, it's just a distraction. And I'm not being anti relationship. I'm just saying the truth is you have to be so incredibly focused as a pro, and you just can't go there. When I was speaking to one of the teams once, and I told them that the first year I was pro, didn't have a phone and I didn't have a TV. All I had were books, my room or my apartment, and I practiced my tail off every single minute of the day. And that is like virtually impossible nowadays. So I don't know, but you could still do it. You could still fast forward the learning process. If you watch that Alex Hanold, or I can't pronounce his last name. I mean,
Honnold.
Honnold,
Yep.
that's just an incredible story. And when you watch him and he's journaling, which I asked our team to do, and I don't, you can't track it down, but I've had some girls that have journaled religiously, and you can tell the difference. He's writing down every single thing about the moon, the sun, and the exact move he's got to make all the way up El Capitan. And I'm like, come on, man, that's just another league altogether.
Yeah. He said that the focus was so high that he was almost at total peace because everything else was gone. The focus was absolute.
He had a stretch. He practiced in a exercise he practiced for an entire year just to make a 3-second move on the mountain.
Yeah, kicking that leg out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm like, there
that's
you go.
amazing.
When you call yourself an elite, whatever, there's a lot of people that are elite. That's one of them right there.
Yeah. The amount of outside distractions gotta go. Gotta go. So when people say, "Can you be like a top level executive and a top level parent?" I'm like, "No." And
Thanks for
people,
saying, because it's a hard thing because everybody does the other way so that they feel mentally healthy. But you can do it all. You can be that way, but you have to turn the burner up and turn the burner down on some things, unfortunately.
yeah, the way Tim Grover, the coach for Jordan and Kobe on them, he described it as a pendulum. And so when he was working with them, that pendulum swung all the way to its extent, working on coaching those athletes. So the whole family got neglected.
Yeah.
Same thing if you go the military route. When you go to boot camp, you don't have any phone, you don't talk to your friends, you don't talk to your family. You're in boot camp, you're in the military, you're doing one thing and one thing only. Everything else goes away. Once you get out of the military or you're not working as a pro anymore, the pendulum usually swings the other direction and kind of balances things out overall. That there's a
Mhm.
give and take overall. But in that moment of building anything great, everything else is just a distraction and holds you back.
Yeah. It's too bad, but that's the way it is.
Yep. I usually ask people about nutrition as just one of the side notes, and I usually don't get into it a whole lot here because I talk mindset's my favorite. But what you wrote down was hysterical. As a pro golfer, I never packed snacks, and I just got water at the water station. Way different now. When I coach tour players, they're doing blood work tests on the course to make sure guys' glucose levels were good. Whereas
Yeah.
you're just getting a Coke at the turn, and John Daly's smoking 2 cartons of cigarettes and drinking Coke all day long. Everybody else is testing their blood, peeing in a cup, and whatever else, standing on their head at a tree.
My girls could just light this show up listening to that because they just died laughing because I just sketch out 100 times a year about snacks and all that stuff. As a matter of fact, this last week, one of the girls was in trouble, and I can't imagine hitting it behind a tree and having no shot, and then pulling out some goldfish and eating them. Well, you know what I mean? While I'm
Right.
thinking about it. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, okay, hey, how about we really grind this out? You can eat your goldfish later. And and the girl's fantastic mentally, but that's just a thing. She just kind of does that. And then one of the other girls was carrying a banana peel around with her. And I'm kind of like, can we just toss that away over here? Well, I don't want to leave it littering. I go, it's gonna be gone in 5 seconds. But I mean, I see the value in it. I can see how you could maybe get the shakes or something if your sugar level's off or something like that. But also, I can see how you could go 2 hours without eating and still perform well. I mean, they do it in the marathon.
Right. Yeah. They're not stopping for snacks. The one time
Yeah.
my brother and I we ran a half marathon in Dayton at the Air Force Academy, and it was his first, and he wasn't used to it and slightly underprepared.
Yeah.
And so there I had those water stations with fruit and orange slices and whatnot. That we're at like mile 10, where most people are kind of falling apart. And he's over at that station for a while. And I'm sitting there,
Yeah.
I'm sitting there waiting, and he comes over and I go, "Hey man, how was the buffet?" You know,
That's
he
perfect.
goes, "I need the sugar. I'm dying here." So well, that's all right. We'll just limp to the rest of the finish line. We'll grab some beer after this, and
Yeah.
have a good time
So anyway, I appreciate it, but it's not my cup of tea and whatever.
for sure. You listen to anything when you're playing, or you walk out there and just listen to nature?
Yeah, no, I'm totally nature. I don't listen to anything. I'm a big believer in state-based training, and I don't favor music at very much many athletic practices. I know they do it lifting weights and stuff, but if it's not going while you're performing, then that's a thing. I think maybe even you and I talked about it. They can pump music in and do all that stuff, but it's not the same.
I know you travel a lot more places than I ever have. Is there any place that you haven't gone to? You're like, man, that's definitely on my list still.
I've not been to Australia, New Zealand. My wife's been quite a few times, and I've never been down there. So I kind of like to maybe I think I wanna see New Zealand more than Australia, actually, because I think it's maybe got more nature stuff, but the trip is so long, and I've been on those planes for a long time, and, that's not any bargain, but maybe there.
Gotcha. Been to Australia once. Would love to go to New Zealand. I know the rainfall is high, but basically, whenever they shoot things like the Lord of the Rings, that's where it's at. But
Yeah.
the real reason for me to go is to watch New Zealand's rugby team the All Blacks play. That would be
Wow,
outstanding.
Red Legacy, that was a good book.
Yeah, Kerr wrote it. Yeah, James Kerr. Do you have a favorite sports movie for us?
Well, I guess I was going to say, I Field of Dreams, man. I think that's a great movie.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's only would be baseball, and then I said Bull Durham already, but probably Field of Dreams might be my favorite sports movie, if you
All right.
call it.
How about your favorite sport to watch?
I love watching baseball in person more than on TV. And I liked it when they sped up the game. Now, some of our college games, I haven't been to very many this year because we're in season, but some of our college games, they drag on because there's so many pitching changes. But that's good. And then, football's fun to watch. But I'd probably say probably baseball's it.
Favorite athlete to watch?
Man, I got some favorite athletes. Michael Phelps. I've never swum in anything other than water skiing, and he just kind of became my favorite athlete because he's just listening to some of the stuff when he talked about visualization and visualizing bad things that can happen to you, like his goggles coming off or his goggles filling up with water. And the one time, I don't know which race it was, but it was for a Olympic gold. I think it was a butterfly, and his goggles filled up with water, and he swam the whole thing blind and won, set a world record. I'm like, okay, there you go. So whenever a coach or a player says, I don't want to think about anything negative, I'm like, well, you got to prepare for every eventuality. And here you have a guy like that doing it. And then he kind of sewed it up for me when he did that last stroke to win the 200 or whatever it was against, I think it was a Serbian or somebody by .01, when the Serbian guy kind of coasted the little last second and Phelps just dug and hit the wall. And I'm like, that's just another level of stuff to watch. And it's not it doesn't have anything to do with the teammates. So it's kind of strange because when I played baseball, I wasn't ever nervous, ever once nervous. I feel like you always thought your teammates would help you out too. And it was just, I mean, I never felt nerves ever. And then
Mm,
you play an individual sport and it's a different bird altogether. So
there you
that's
go.
why, Michael,
Got a book recommendation for us?
man, well, Man's Search for Meaning, that's a one that got me.
Wow. Wow. I had to read that in theology sophomore year, St. Ignatius High School, Cleveland, Ohio, by Viktor Frankl.
Viktor Frankl, yeah, that kind of got me started. One I read recently was Annie Duke's Thinking in Bets. That's kind of a good one. It's a little bit different. It's a good sports thing because essentially it's about not playing on tilt. I don't play poker, but I know what that means. It's when things aren't going your way and you throw in extra money and you chase and don't play disciplined and you don't play by your game plan. And all of that stuff is great for sport. When somebody's 100, when you're talking to someone and there's, whether it's politics or life or whatever, and they say, well, this is the way it is. And Annie Duke asked, well, for $1 million, are you willing to say that that is 100% true for $1 million? Because she's played $1 million hands before. And it's like, no, maybe it's not. Okay. And if people will actually answer that question before they spout off so much or think about things, for $1 million, would you say that that is absolutely true and then proceed from there? It's kind of a cool way to think.
I
Yeah,
like
I
it.
read a lot of books, and most of them, I mean, a lot of them, the ones that we read for golf aren't really golf related. There's Grit. That's a good one. Angela Duckworth. Carol Dweck's book was one of the first ones I ever read on mindset. That's a great book for athletes. Some of it's kind of dry and a little clinical, but you need to do that. And then find some other books, whether they're biographies or something. I think I mentioned to you once, Endurance, the story about Ernest Shackleton getting his ship stuck in the Antarctic, and he had 27 crew members and they were there for 2.5 years and they all survived. I mean, come on. That kind of stuff is just amazing to me.
Yeah, my wife's read that book.
Yeah.
Do you have a superhero and villain that you like?
Man, I'm not a big superhero guy. I suppose,
It could be
you
real
know,
life per
a real life person. Yeah, you made me think about a villain. There's probably a million villains. There's that playing out in the war right now. That's kind of a thing. A superhero, I guess. I mean, you got Superman, he's got the kryptonite, so there's always something that somebody's got. that they have to overcome. So that would be a story I would like there.
I always talk about Hannibal Lecter being one of my favorite villains.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, he is. That's oh, I've watched it 100 times. I mean, he is just the most fascinating actor, but that's a good one. Yeah.
Yep. A lot of people poo-poo like lifting and golf, and they don't realize how impactful it is. What's a lift that you have your girls do, or something a lift that you think has a lot of correlation and help in the golf world?
Yeah. So our team lifts pretty heavily all season, really. And we're fortunate to have Dave McManus as our strength and conditioning coach, and he's the head of our department. He takes it serious with the girls, and it's really cool. That I think it's great for the other sports to see girls golf and they're just getting after it, and they do. Well, golf's got a lot of things that work well. A lot of barbell swings and squats and box jumps and things to develop speed. Or I think with our girls at first developing some great core strength is a good thing. It helps them with their putting because it helps their posture. You wouldn't think weights would help with putting, but it does. And
Nice.
it helps their ego and it helps, yeah, it's something that they'll carry on for the rest of their life. Because if they don't start it now, they're not going to pick it up later, especially as young women, they're going to get busy. And so I'm really proud of the team and them for how hard they work at that. But lats and delts and things like that are important in golf. Um,
Gotcha. You got a
but the
quote for
posture is big.
you got a quote for us?
My favorite quote is Al Pacino. It was in Scent of a Woman. And he
Who
said, what's that?
who
He said, yeah, there you go. He said, I always knew what the right path was.
I never took
Without
it.
exception, I knew it, but I never took it because it was just too damn hard. And that pretty much sums up, you know, the journey as an athlete, honestly. If you know it, but you won't take it, and you and I've talked about that, here's the stuff. There's never been a better time to be an athlete. There's never been a better time to get good training and to learn and stuff that I never had the opportunity to do. There's never been a better time, but you have to be willing to do it. And you have to say, I'm going to do it. And some people, it's just too damn hard.
Yeah. That's my number one slogan all the time is Nike's "Just Do It." Greg,
Yeah.
where can people find you?
Um, well, I'm on the Indiana State website. They can find me there.
There you go.
Um, or at gregory.town at indstate.edu.
Town at indstate.edu, and town is
Yeah,
with an E on the end.
is with an E. Yep.
That's how I found you. Heard that you had checked out my book and reached out to you, so I'm really glad I did, and just started getting to know you this year and having fun doing it. So stick around here once we're done here. I have a couple other questions, but thanks for
Okay.
being on this, being
My pleasure. Thanks, Jim.
for sure.
Okay.
Anyone else that wants to get a hold of us, check us out, info@athlete-builder.com. Brought to you by the AEA Institute, the Mental Edge Academy. Hit me up for that. Also, you can look for Athlete Builder on School as we build our community, putting all our resources and all our help out there in that community. So check us out there. So Greg, until next time, love talking to you.
Thanks, Jim. See you.
See ya.